Hi, I'm Julie Fernandez and welcome to this Peterborough Presents podcast, where we celebrate everyday creativity. Every person tuning in has a spark of creativity within them. It can appear in countless ways, from stunning professional performances to a simple inventive doodle on a notepad. No matter who you are, your unique form of creativity is there, even if it's yet to be discovered. In each episode, I'll be speaking with various local creatives, poets, crafters, dancers, singers, writers, and many others, to explore what creativity means to them and how it shapes their lives. Whether you're a seasonal artist or feel as imaginative as a blank piece of paper, this podcast is for you. So listen in, you might just uncover your own creative potential. How lovely to have you all join us today for the podcast. Brilliant. I'm going to start, if you don't mind, going round the table asking what your name is, what you're creative in, and what you're not creative in. So, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So, my name is Shatavisha Mitra. So, I have been staying here for 3 years. This is my third year in Peterborough. So, my creativity is in arts and a little bit of dancing, but I can't sing. I'm an awful singer, not even a bathroom singer.
I'm Malika Speaks. I am creative with words, but not with drawing. I feel like my brain knows what it wants to draw, but it just gets lost in translation by the time it reaches my hand.
I'm with you, and I'm with you. How about you?
My name's Emily, and I think, mostly creative in terms of music and stuff like that. I run a choir, so lots of singing involved. I was trying to think what I'm not creative in, because I like to dabble in lots of things. I like to try new stuff. Doesn't mean I'm any good at it, but I like to try. And I think we've decided that I'm not creative in gardening, because if I look at something green, it dies.
I can take that from every one of you. I get you. I totally get you. If it's okay, I'd really like to find out a little bit more from each of you about your groups, because today it's really about creativity within groups and how it brings people together. So do you want to start by telling me, so you're with the Bengali Sanskrit Club, is that right?
Right, that's right.
Tell me about that and how that started.
Yeah, so it is basically headed by Anamika, so who couldn't join us today. But it is basically a cultural group. So we have a lot of Bengali community out there in Peterborough. And for Bengalis, we try to celebrate every functions and everything with a bit of creativity, like singing, dancing, decorating and stuff. So this group was created in 2022, and it started with a big festival of Durga Puja, which is one of the major festival of India and Bengali Association. It is also a UNESCO Hidden Heritage Festival. Yeah. So to get the flavor out of India and into Peterborough, this festival started off, and we have different groups of drama, then dance, then painting, drawing, decorating and all those stuffs, and singing also. So we try to celebrate 3 or 4 days a year for the Durga Puja, and this is how the group came into existence in 2022.
Brilliant. And you mentioned earlier how it started from back home. There was something that was going on back home that brought. Tell us about that.
In India, there's for Bengalis, there's a community in Bengalis who are based in and around Kolkata. So there is a state, West Bengal, right? So we have we have 13 festivities in 12 seasons. So, okay.
So one festivity a month, basically, or
yes,
just
maybe more than a month.
Great, I like it.
We just love to celebrate.
Brilliant.
Ourselves.
Any excuse for a party?
Yes, we are in. So, Durga Puja is kind of a very oldest festival where we worship Ma Durga, and during the worship of 4 days, we try to indulge ourselves in good food, good music, good festivities and everything. So that is something everyone earns for when they are not at home. So here, Anamika and others, we tried to create that festivity here in Peterborough, and it's going on since 2022.
And it's going well?
Yeah, it's going very well, yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant. We'll come back to that in a bit. Malika, tell me a bit about yourself and the group events that you've done.
So, though my main practice is poetry and spoken word, and on the surface that appears like quite a individual practice, it's led me to engaging with lots of community groups and other creatives as well. So a lot of my work has looked at how do we use arts and culture to create connections between people, especially where maybe groups of people might not have had the opportunity to be in the same room. So it's about using like arts as a form of communication in a way that's sensitive to maybe some barriers that might present themselves for communities or between communities.
What kind of barriers might they be?
It could be to do with access, so it could be that some people might feel that creative spaces, so there's kind of two angles to this. So some of these projects have been about supporting communities in attending events and projects and activities that feel that speak to their culture and identity.
Yeah.
Or it might be that there might be misunderstandings between communities, and it's about creating space for that dialogue. And it might not be literal in like a let's sit down and have a face-to-face conversation, but it might be let's engage in something creative and make something beautiful that actually reflect that we are so much more connected than we realise.
That's really interesting. Have you worked on any projects that do that bring the creativity, bring people together?
So there was a project that I took part in a few years ago called Story the City, which is a Google-funded project which sought to tackle extremism and build bridges between communities. And I think that marks almost an ethos that I feel I've carried across my other projects, because that really looked at how do we hold people in a safe way and allow them to be vulnerable, but equally experience joy in a way that by the end of that experience there is a sense of we've had a shared experience. And actually all these things, when we strip away all these barriers, and I say that because I think sometimes when things like politics get involved, it creates divides that when we are put in a room like that and engaging in something that doesn't demand those elements, we realise actually maybe there isn't a need for those feelings, or actually it breaks misunderstandings and creates understanding and empathy. And that's one of my favourite things about creative projects. It's power to unite and connect people together.
It's brilliant. I want to hear more about that in a bit. Emily, your turn.
Indeed. So we started up the choir. Facebook actually helpfully reminded me this morning it was 7 years ago that we announced we were launching the choir in Peterborough.
So it's called...
It's Lucy's Pop Choir,
Yep.
which it confuses everyone because I'm Emily, but Lucy is my little sister actually. She started the original choir up in York, so she's a trained vocal coach and wanted some way to kind of bring people together and use what she knew, and since then she's franchised in various different ways and opened up lots of different branches. I think there's about 12, maybe 13, 14 different choirs across now Scotland and Wales and all sorts. So it's grown massively, which has been brilliant.
Has it?
Yeah. So 7 years ago we launched our first choir. About a year later we launched the second one, so we do 2 nights a week.
Here in this region?
Yes, so Monday nights in Marham, Tuesday nights in Warrington. We've tried to cover as much in terms of the city as we can. We've just started a Wednesday night in Stamford now as well, so we're trying to stop people having to travel too far, which is always nice. I guess we believe that singing should be fun. It's a fantastic way to stay healthy, to stay sane, great for your mental health and general well-being. And so we don't audition, we don't use sheet music, all of the things that can be a barrier to people joining choirs, because they're like, well, I can't do this or I can't do that. I can't sing.
Yes.
We don't care. Our only rule is you have to have fun. So it's all good. And we just sing songs that you kind of know and love from the charts. So people just come along and they set aside as they walk in the stuff from the day. We quite often people will say, I dragged myself here this evening. I've had the longest day and it was just awful. I just wanted to flop on the sofa, big glass of wine. But no, I'm going to choir. And they leave buzzing. And it's so, so lovely to see that difference just in rehearsals. And that's before we get out and start performing for people. And
tell me about performing for people. What do you do? Where do you go? What?
we do a lot of things for different charities. So we've done things like, I mean, the Peterborough Celebrates Festival is one of our favourites, that kind of big stage, massive audience, bringing all the different things together. That's been amazing.
Okay.
But our other favourite is Thorpe Hall Hospice every Christmas.
Okay.
We go and we do carol singing there, and so long as I don't make eye contact with anyone, because if one of them cries, I'm going to cry too. It's the one I think we all find the most rewarding. So it varies from all sorts of different things. You know, we sing for people as they go past on the Race for Life and the Starlight Hike, all of the charity things that get done locally, and we love it. Done a couple of flash mobs as well lately, which has been amazing.
How exciting. Tell me about them.
We had a silver wedding anniversary. We were commissioned to do that. So we're all mingling around, and she commissioned it, and her husband was going, how do you know all these people again? Where do you worked with them, really? And then we just kind of burst into song, and everyone's faces was just, so.
Okay, that was wonderful. And then did everyone else join in?
Just the choir.
Okay.
So I think people probably were singing along because it's all stuff you know. But yeah, and we did the same thing for one of our choir members' weddings. So they called them up as if they were coming to do their first dance, and instead 3 or 4 of us just started singing, and then halfway through the bride joined in as well, and it was amazing just to see the joy on people's faces. That's why we do what we do.
That sounds amazing. Yeah. So I think there's something in how creativity can bring people together, especially if you're in groups. So the choir, the dancing, the performing with the audience. What do you guys think about how creativity in groups bring people together?
First of all, it's very engaging, and it keeps motivating that, okay, it's like, as Emily pointed out, that we need to look up, means after a hectic day, we can go for the rehearsals, then that will be a stress buster. So the rehearsal part is also very interesting. For me personally, I like the rehearsal part more than the actual performance day.
Why is that?
Because it's something you look forward to in the day. Okay. When you start your job in the morning, okay, you have your clock set that at 6 a.m. you have to go at this place for the rehearsal. So you have to plan your day accordingly. Okay. And then the 6 p.m. finally arrives. Then you go to the rehearsal, have a very stress-free and a very nice time, and then you come back at home, and then you're happy, means all the stress and all the tiredness has gone, and now you can go to sleep peacefully. So the rehearsal part is very nice. Then in the rehearsal you meet so many people of the same interest, you talk about the new stuffs or new trends which are there, so it's very uplifting for it. And then finally the day of your hard work comes, so there's the audience. So definitely we don't make the eye contact. It gives nervous chills, yeah. But that day comes, and after the completion it feels a sense of achievement. But soon the day after we feel something is over, and we look forward to the next celebration again, and we keep asking when is the next celebration, when it's going to happen. So this feels good.
Do you think creativity helps mental health?
Yes, definitely it does. At least for the 1 hour or 2 you are just cut off for any kind of pressure or any kind of thing you are going in your head. So you are just focusing. For example, in the case of dancing, you are just focusing on the steps, on the music and everything. When you are singing, then you are focusing on the lyrics and the everything. I'm not very good at singing, so I can't be technical, but it feels good. You can focus on that period of time, just forget all your tensions and everything, and it gives you a new boost of energy for the rest of the day or the week.
And the dance routines, who designs the dance routines?
Okay, we have very talented dancers in our group, like Amrita.
That helps.
Yeah. I myself is not a very good dancer, rather not a good dancer at all, but the persons who are good at it, they brings up to the speed, and it's good.
Brilliant.
And we always refer to the YouTubes and other stuffs for the choreography, so that's good.
What did we do before YouTube?
I don't know.
Yeah, so much to learn from it, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then back in India, we had classes, most of us.
Okay.
So in the community as a group, when a child is born, after 1 or 2 years, we are sent to each and every classes, like go to drawing class, go to singing class, it's just fun. Now the child chooses which is her or his area of expertise, then they stick to it, and then they grow up to it. But every child in the household is creative in some way or the other.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So it's
I love
seen as
that.
something positive to
Yes.
to achieve.
Yes.
Yeah, it's something I think we're lacking very much nowadays in schools.
Yes.
They've taken away more and more since. I mean, I was a teacher before, and certainly when I was at school, it was all about the creative stuff. It was there were dance groups, there was all sorts of stuff, and now I think that's just been squashed within the curriculum. Teachers don't have the time or the enthusiasm or the anything left at the end of the day to do that kind of stuff, and I think kids are missing out because they're not getting to try stuff, because that's the thing, if you don't try it you don't know whether you're going to be any good at it or not if you never get a chance to give it a go. So
Exactly.
I love that.
Yes.
And there's so much about creativity, isn't there, that is a stress regulator in a way that other lessons aren't.
Yeah,
And
very
it's good
much so.
exercise as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the outlet, and it's not just the performing arts stuff. It's the art and design things. It's all of the different ways that we get to be creative. Because if we were all the same, if everyone was just academic and we all came out the same at the end of school, life would be so boring, and we'd be missing out on so much stuff.
There's also something, I think, in when you're in a group, it's about how you share that, how you support each other in that environment. Tell me a bit about yourself as a poet, because I guess that's initially an individual thing, but then you're sharing it with a wider audience, and you engage as a wordsmith. Tell me a bit about that.
I think there's something there about connection. And just to connect to your question with what's been said already, I think it's really important to recognise the power of the process, and I think sometimes it can be tempting, even as an artist, to focus on the output, but there's so much in the process, and even if it is just that you're having fun, it's that experience of joy or experimenting, there's so much to be taken from that. And for me, whether it is a community project which works with quite intimately with a group of people, or it's performing, there's something there about being able to use the language in my poetry, or to use words when we're using them creatively in a project, to create meaning and develop empathy across people. So like in my practice, for example, initially writing and creating poems was a way for me to understand what I was experiencing and the emotions that I was going through, that I was struggling with. And
how old was you when you started getting into poetry?
Writing, I started from whenever I could pick up a pen.
Okay.
It was very much story writing in the beginning. It developed into poetry probably around 9, 10 in a more consistent sense. Like I enjoyed creating poems when I was writing cards to my mum or dad. But when I started connecting my experiences and my emotions with my work, that was probably before I entered my teen years.
Okay.
And it was important to me that that expression was used to support other people in feeling heard as well, even though they're listening. It's a sense of, I understand what you're experiencing and you're not alone. And sometimes I think art creates a safe space to be able to say things that we can't in typical dialogue. I think it's a safe space in being able to express. In a way, sometimes it is just fun. In other ways, it feels like the societal boundaries are not as present.
And you can be quite political within creativity as well, can't you? I've seen some amazing creative pieces, from poetry to 3D pieces of art that talk about equality and rights in a way that is really engaging.
I totally agree with that. And I think the biggest, the most rewarding element of whether it is a performance-based event or just an intimate community engagement project is when people feed back that I feel heard, or I feel like I've been able to express myself in a way that I haven't been able to before. I think that for me is the most beautiful thing.
What about funding for groups? How does that work for you guys? How have you managed to get the finances in? Do you have to fundraise? Is it a business? Is it a charity? How do you keep the momentum going for you, for example? You mentioned it being
Choir it's a subscription thing, so you just have your membership across the year, although that then means you can come along to Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday if you want to. Like so much choir all week long. That's been the way that we've done it. Lucy set it up originally as a business, so it's been something that certainly for me, it was the thing that helped me get out of teaching. I knew I didn't want to teach anymore. I didn't quite know how to transfer my skills, didn't know how we were going to pay the bills, because if you've been in a career for 15 years, then jumping into another career, you're not likely to get the same kind of paycheck, even with a teacher's paycheck. And choir was the thing that actually paid the bills while I was able to step back from teaching and start my business. So
that's quite, you've gone from being a maths teacher to running a choir group. That's amazing.
It's
that takes confidence.
Yeah, and I don't know where I found it, but I did. It was terrifying to begin with. The first time I got up and started trying to teach them the parts, because we learn everything by ear. We don't do sheet music. So I sing them the parts and they learn the parts, and we have you can sing along to the rehearsal tracks if you want, but we don't do homework.
But I suppose as a teacher you're at the front of the group, you're teaching a class, so
different.
It's different, but
it feels more personal when when it's singing, because it feels, I don't know, there's that aspect of, are they judging my voice and so on, and I got over it fairly quickly, but it was terrifying to start with. And it's like ask any teacher in front of a class, whatever, it's totally fine, I can just get up and wing it, it's all good. Put me in front of a group of parents or other teachers, feels very different, adults versus children. And it was, I think, the same thing with the choir, just that there's a whole room full of people here and I need to do this right, and what if, and then we relaxed into the first session, and I don't think I've looked back.
That's amazing.
It's been brilliant.
What's the age range that can join the choir?
We're 18 and over, so it's adults, but we have people up to sort of, I think, about 80 odd. Must be getting close to that. And we've had 18 upwards. We tend to be more 20-somethings upwards now. We've never quite had enough younger people to form a little cluster and not feel like I'm the only one here.
Would you do an 18 and below group?
Possibly. It's just, it adds a complication. You've got you need someone else to chaperone, and you've got to do all the DBS checks and things. We've talked about setting up a children's choir. There has been stuff that's happened in Peterborough, but it's just never quite rooted itself properly and taken off.
Can people join in even if they can't get there? So could you join in on Zoom, for example?
Potentially. Over the pandemic we did Zoom choir, but it's tricky because then you lose, I think, one of the core elements of choir. I think however good or bad a singer you are, you're just you. Like, you can get up, you can sing a thing, but there is nothing like the feeling when the harmony parts come together and you can hear it and it just sends chills down your spine. It's amazing, and you can't ever do that on your own.
There is something about music that can create an emotion, isn't there?
Yeah, and you can't do that over Zoom because it's just you singing at your computer. You can't hear all the other people joining in.
Yeah.
So I think you lose that togetherness element. It's that creating something more than yourself that I think is what keeps people coming back. It's just, there's no feeling like it.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Malika, how's it been for you regarding funding those group elements and what you do?
I think on the whole funding can be really challenging. There's limited resources and lots of people with lots of great ideas that need the funding. I feel grateful to have had lots of opportunities that I've been in partnership with organisations in the city, and I think that element of co-creation and collaboration has been really helpful when it's come to applications, but also in sort of joining forces in trying to achieve shared missions, whether that's, trying to provide enrichment activities for young people, or whether it's trying to improve connection between communities across our city. Yeah.
Do you think there's not enough finance? You mentioned something earlier about how, from schools, they've kind of stripped creativity out of education, haven't they? And it does feel a bit difficult to fundraise for things now.
Absolutely.
And actually creativity is a brilliant way of learning.
And I think what we're finding, especially post pandemic, is that creativity feels like a gateway into education for a lot of young people who are struggling to access it. So I have a bit of a teaching background as well, and I've worked with young people who are no longer in mainstream education and unfortunately become forgotten, and they are marginalised, and because of their difficulties and some of their life experiences, they struggle to access education in a mainstream setting. And in my experience, creativity has been sometimes for some individuals the only way to be able to engage and learn. And I think that's a lot to do with, we mentioned elements of well-being. When you are someone who's dealt with a lot of trauma, it's a way of, there's a part of your brain that's activated when you're creating that makes learning easier, especially if you're in constant flight or fight mode. So I'm definitely an advocate for presenting more of these opportunities for young people, especially where, young people are struggling to engage.
And how about you? What's it like for the finances for your group?
Yeah, so there are various modes of it. Like when we are conducting a big festival, like Durga Puja I mentioned, the yearly affair. So we do fundraise a bit from the participants who are participating in the effort. There are sponsors in various organizations, and some from like Peterborough Presents itself. Like in 2022, they sponsored all the decorative items and artworks and stuff. So there are 3 categories we can say. The major is the fundraising. So if a family is participating, because it's a very expensive affair when you conduct over a period of 3 to 4 days. So then contribution is required. So that is then the next part is your Peterborough Presents, which I said. And then there are small businesses and organizations which are very helpful in sponsoring little bits and stuffs about it. But so this is how the funding occurs for big functionalities. But for individual programs and stuff, when the opportunity is like, suppose there is a function, so there is a program where Rituranga, the dance group name is Rituranga, where Rituranga is performing, then we try to get the funding from each individual for the dresses and stuff. So we buy from our own self, and some we get from Anamika, who has arranged from some sponsors and something. So it's a mixed bag funding. But that's how it's
So I mean, there's a whole range of brilliant creative groups in Peterborough, but I know specifically 2 that I've worked with over the years: Peterborough Presents and Metal. Have you guys worked with them on any group events, and how has that been, and what has that been like?
Well, I mean, we've absolutely loved being part of the Peterborough Celebrates Festival. That's been that was in Ferry Meadows. So there's so much there. It's the first time, I think, since I was at school that I've seen a contemporary dance act perform both years, and I hadn't realised how much I'd missed it.
But now tell us about it, because you mentioned earlier before we started that you used to do dance as a kid, right?
I did, yeah. So when I was at school, I was very into my dance lessons. I was lucky enough to have a fantastic dance teacher within my school, Di Goldsmith, who does lots of creative stuff in and around Peterborough now still. And she got me into like performing arts summer schools and all sorts of dance festivals, things along those lines. It was a fantastic outlet. I think it is performing arts at school was the making of my confidence, my ability to come out of my shell, I think. And I absolutely loved that. And it just, unfortunately, I got to the point where I realised that everyone else was just so much bendier than I was, and I couldn't keep up.
There's something about age that isn't there in that. Yeah.
And so singing became the outlet at that point.
Brilliant.
But yeah, all sorts of different styles that I tried and things. It kept me fit, it kept me sane, it kept me out from under mum's feet, which was probably quite helpful too. And yeah, absolutely loved it. I think if not for those teachers, Di and some of my other teachers at school, I don't think I'd be anywhere near as into the arts as I am. I think it made such a difference. And we're lucky enough that my daughter's school is very good in terms of arts. They put on a fantastic show each year. Okay. She's desperate to get some kind of lead role this year. despite heading into year 11. Just not necessarily the best mix, but it's all good.
They do stuff at the Key Theatre, don't they, in the summer holidays with the kids and stuff.
Yes.
Has she ever done anything there?
She hasn't. I did one, Evita. I can't remember much more about that. But yeah, it was, it's that being able to get out of your usual friendship group, to meet new people, to be able to also then almost be a different person, because you get to the point where you spend all this time with these people and you're you, and they know what to expect, and if you do something different they're a bit confused, whereas you can almost be a different person. I'm naturally much more of an introvert, but you put me in front of the choir and I'm suddenly a comedian and extrovert, and that's it's not my director persona, it's just I let that side of me out, which I don't normally feel confident enough to do. So I think things like dance and any kind of performance, it just lets you be a different person for a while if you want to, try out different things, not feel like you're you in your little box. So I've loved every chance I've had to do that stuff since school, yeah.
And you mentioned a contemporary dance group at the...
yeah, I can't for the life of me remember what they were called, but they had a whole thing where they'd got a structure with poles set in the ground, and they were dancing kind of all hanging off this scaffolding almost, and moving things around, and it was just absolutely stunning. I'd never seen anyone do anything like that before in terms of the skill involved. They were just leaping from thing to thing and catching each other and chucking each other around, and like 5 feet up in the air. It was insane.
Without any...
Oh yeah. And it was absolutely stunning. And I think it was a great opportunity, because you don't see as much contemporary dance. You see all sorts of styles in music videos and things, and when it's performance groups, you get lots of the more cultural styles, which is amazing, but I don't see as much contemporary. It's the same thing on all the various talent shows on TV. It's not the popular thing, so you don't get to see as much of it, and it was nice, I think, that I got to show my daughter, like, that's the kind of thing I used to do. I mean, not up in the air, because I was not at that level, but that kind of thing, just...
What would you say if she came home and said, I want to do the up in the air lot?
I would say, go for it.
Brilliant.
I'll start saving for the hospital bills.
Malika, tell me a little bit about your work at Metal and what Metal do, because they're also a fantastic local organisation.
Absolutely. I think my relationship with Metal started when I became Poet Laureate. There was a lot of support from them and Peterborough Presents in artist development. So really, supporting creatives in following their practice and connecting with other creatives and other organisations. So I feel quite blessed to have worked with them on a few occasions, and now I've just joined the team, and it's amazing being on the other side and being part of their operations. So more recently I was one of the artists in residence, which was really exciting because I had the opportunity to receive support from Metal in developing a wellbeing project, a programme that I've been working on, which looks at using holistic wellness methods and creative writing to support individuals in building a sense of empowerment and processing emotions. And they've been, and what's lovely about Metal is that even if you finished a project with them or your residency, the doors are always open in connecting you with others or offering relationships or signposting you to other events that they feel will be supportive in your practice. Another project that I really enjoyed was a project with young people, which supported them in developing skills in producing and facilitating their own event as part of Peterborough Celebrates, which was really lovely to watch them grow and be part of that journey. And Metal and Peterborough Presents are really committed to that aspect of community. Some of my favourite projects have been with them.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Just looking at it from a slightly different angle, has anyone ever come across barriers and obstacles to creativity? And if you have, how have you overcome them? Is that something that you found?
Not really, because it is such a short term. No, I wouldn't say there are some really big barriers to the creativity, but it goes on. So I don't think we have so far.
That's brilliant. And how about you?
I think just time.
Yeah.
I think there's so much other pressure, particularly if it's not your full-time job. There have been things where I've started something that I've wanted to spend lots of time on and get really creative with and get really into, and then had to just keep pausing it to go off and do the actual day job, and that's
Boring,
frustrating.
isn't it?
Yeah. When I'm into a project, that's all I want to do. So it's tricky sometimes to be able to carve out the time, the space to do those things. But I think they've pretty much all got there eventually. It's just taken longer than I'd have hoped. I mean, finding a space, the pandemic was a massive barrier in terms of creativity. It was a long time until we managed to get back to choir, because there was the whole thing about singing being worse for spreading germ, which was not true, but it stopped us from getting back for a long time. As Facebook reminded me, 7 years ago we launched the choir. 3 years ago today was the first day I got to go back to choir.
Oh, okay.
After the pandemic. I was like, I'm not crying, you're crying. I'd missed it so much.
Okay.
We did one session where we went and sat in a car park, and it was just windy and we were all far away from each other, and it was nice to see everyone, but it wasn't the same until we managed to actually get back together, sort of all in one place, all in a room, actually able to hear each other properly, able to do what we do again.
Does it feel like family?
Yeah. During the pandemic, they formed their own little book club. They've got their own little WhatsApp groups within their little sections. We pretty much every night after choir go to the pub to have a catch up and a natter, and everyone knows each other. They all check in on each other. They know what's going on in people's lives. They look out for each other, which is just so lovely to see. It's been a real privilege to be able to bring people together like that. Yeah.
Amazing. What about you? Have you ever come across any barriers or complications?
I feel like I really resonate with the time element, and I think that is because, as much as you want to do it full time, there's the practical elements to that. And I think when I first entered the arts and culture scene, was probably imposter syndrome, and it does come back, but I think it's just, for me, I found reminding myself of the importance of the process and not having expectations has been really useful as part of that. And I feel like everybody on the arts and culture scene are so encouraging of each other, and I feel like it's. I think it's just remembering as well that is just have fun. I think that's the whole point of arts and creativity. So, that's been helpful in overcoming some of those feelings.
And how about accessibility? So because, we're talking about group events and group aspects, so many venues aren't brilliantly accessible, like for someone like myself who's a wheelchair user, or for people with other disabilities and health conditions. Have you had to explore that in a different way, or offer what you're doing in a different way? And how have you done that, and how's that been?
Venues, so long as you let them know in advance, have generally been quite good about helping us work out the logistics, or about then just adjusting on the spot if needs be. We had something where we were performing, they'd done one of those side of the lorry stage things, and we got there and we were having to basically climb a ladder. It was only about 3 rungs, but it was climb a ladder to get up onto the stage. I was like, well, I'm going to struggle with that, let alone we have a person in a wheelchair, we have a person who struggles with her mobility, has a scooter when she needs it. In fact, we have 2, and cane if not. They're not going to do it. So we just lifted all the mics down and performed in front of the stage.
Okay.
It's usually pretty good if we've not communicated it well enough, or they haven't realised. We've had the odd few things where it's been a bit of a trek to get from wherever you can be dropped off to the venue, and you've ended up, having to push the walker through a field on one occasion, which was not so much fun. I think people are quite keen to help if they can.
Mm-hmm.
It's just sometimes the actual physical practicalities of where you are as to whether you can do anything about that or not. But it's been interesting. I mean, we had a deaf member at one point who was, she learned to play the piano by the vibrations.
Yeah.
And then taught herself to sing that way, and she was really good.
Amazing.
And nobody really knew, because she lip reads, sings along, and every so often she'd make some comment about it, and people would go, "What? You're what? But how are you here?" And it was nice to be able to be that inclusive.
Yeah.
And we are a very mixed bunch at choir, and so yeah, we do have to get in touch with venues and say, look, great, but we're going to need a couple of chairs on the stage, and we're going to need to be able to get on and off. And yeah, generally people have been quite good about accommodating where they can. Yeah.
That's brilliant. How about you? Have you found you've had any people with disabilities in the groups or in the audience that you've needed to adapt for?
Yeah, but we are more than happy to adapt, because any creative thing is all about being inclusive, right? So the objective of it to have fun, have happiness, and also the audience or whoever is the participant, the stakeholder of it, have fun. So, and luckily we didn't have any unpleasant experiences like that. Everyone has been so accommodative, and even in the Peterborough Celebrates function, there were ramps and stuff. So it was good, and we have never been disappointed that so maybe it's a time is like 2 or 3 years we haven't seen anything wrong, but in general we haven't seen any negative reaction or anything, because ultimate objective is to being inclusive and spread happiness as much as you can.
Absolutely. And how about for you?
I'm really proud to share that experience, and that organisations and individuals that I've ever worked with have always been more than happy to support. And I think that should be a given. I think accessibility should be the basis of everything that we do. As you rightly said, it's about inclusivity and making sure that everybody feels accommodated for, looked after, and part of, and able to access whatever is happening. Yeah.
Do you think Peterborough has a good creative scene going on within the city, or do you think it's a little bit lacking and we need to have more?
I think, as an overview, I think there is. I think there's some limitations maybe around resources, because I feel like there's so many ideas, so many individual creatives and organisations would love to do more, but there's limitation on resources and funding.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big things as part of that is outreach work and doing more to support communities that maybe sit just outside of Peterborough, and maybe communities that don't access arts and creativity as much.
Which communities are they, would you say?
I think an example of one is like the Southeast Asian community. So a recent project that I worked on was in relation to theatre, and looking at how it's quite nice because it was an experimental project. So it kind of looked at the features of performance and just being creative through movement and using voice, and working. So I worked with a group of young people in the Millfield area. We got together weekly, and over the period of a few months leading up to the recent celebration of Landmark Theatres, when they had the Welcome Weekender, they had the opportunity to perform whatever they'd created, and that could look like whatever they felt comfortable with. So in that time we explored some themes around their relationship with theatre and performance, and really important themes like identity, which I think arts and creativity holds a lot of space for. Mm-hmm. Exploring and being proud of and celebrating. So the project was an opportunity not just to support the young people in exploring that, but also having a chance to own the stage, because they could very much make it what they wanted it to be and express and present something that felt important to issues that they felt really passionate about.
And how about you? Do you think there's enough going on in and around Peterborough regarding creativity and creative groups and events?
There is sufficiently going on, but there is scope for more. Yeah.
Always.
Yes, there is scope for
Absolutely.
more. Maybe as you pointed out, there can be resources that can be spent to have more inclusivity, because we, as I said, they are the expensive affairs. So we try to get funds from the via fundraising and stuff. But if we have more resources, then we can do it much more smoothly, and we can be much more inclusive about it.
Yeah, and how do you feel about that?
I think there's a lot going on, but the trick is finding out about it, knowing where to go, knowing where to look.
Yeah.
And people like Peterborough Presents have been really useful in that it's that one-stop shop. They pull together so you can follow one person and hear about all the different events, all the different opportunities, because there's a load of things going on. There are bands performing all over the place, and things like open mics. There's all sorts of opportunities for people to get out there and go and do things, but you've got to know what they are. And short of advertising,
Yeah, that is also
how else do you tell people that you exist? You go out and you perform and people see you, and that's lovely. And that's how we get a lot of our members. They've seen us performing and they've gone, that looks fun, I'm going to give it a go. But other than that, how else do you tell people that you're around, So
would you suggest people contact Peterborough Presents and Metal to find out what's going on in and around Peterborough creatively?
Yeah, just following those kind of We Love Peterborough, the different social media presences that we have, where they're able to then promote all the different things that are going on. I think that's a really good way to find out. So long as creatives we're letting them know we're doing things. Yeah. I think it's a nice sort of roundup almost, rather than guessing, Googling, hoping, searching, because you don't know what to look for, do you, necessarily?
And a lot of these organisations have mailing lists as well, so it's really useful to get in touch and find out how you can join that. And I also wanted to add, so I think it's really important to acknowledge that I think Peterborough's organisations, they really seek to pay artists fairly and make sure that they are committed to access. And I think what that means is that when they put on productions and shows and events, they want to do it properly. And I think when it comes to thinking about resourcing, for example, I think, our organisations are really committed to making sure that, because I think sometimes it's tempting when you have all these ideas and, as we can all agree, there's always scope to do more. It's tempting to maybe stretch those resources out, but I think it's really lovely that it's important to Peterborough's organisations to make sure that everybody feels included, but also they feel like their engagement is fair, whether that's through fair pay or support in kind as well.
Do you know what? I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for joining me for today. We'd love to put any details of your group's social media on at the end, but please do, if you do, just let us know. Tell us out loud what you've got.
lucyspopchoir.co.uk, and then you just find the nearest branch to you and book your free taster.
Amazing.
Wonderful. I think the best way to stay in touch with my activity would be to follow me on Instagram at Malika Speaks, and then at Wisteria Wellbeing, which is the newly developed program that I'm working on.
We have our Instagram page, Bengali Sanskrit Club. We have a Facebook page, and we have the contact numbers in the pages, so anyone interested in joining us can join from there. We have a WhatsApp group also where we can accommodate people. That's all.
But it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure too.
And that's all for today, but don't go far because we've got some fantastic guests on the horizon. Check out this sneak peek of what's in store for our next episode.
It's become such a wonderful project that it's taken that legacy to do with light in the village and made it into something that isn't stressful or problematic, that's really positive and brought a lot of people together. Prior to the project, I'd have said that not many people kind of came together in the village. And then for the first parade, people poured out onto the streets. The high street was full of people. I have never seen it like that. And I've lived in the village most of my life.
Don't forget, you can catch all episodes from Season 1 available for download right now on your favourite podcast platform. Prefer to watch? No problem. Head over to the Peterborough Presents YouTube channel for the full-length episodes. We're eager to bring you a Season 2, so make sure to like and comment, subscribe and share with all your friends and family. Every interaction makes a huge difference. I'm Julie Fernandez, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode.